MCP bridge. Yeah.
MCP bridge?
Yes, connecting two MCPs together without using AI. So yeah, we're going to be talking about some GPT-5 stuff. So yeah, it should be a good and Notion in AI as well. So hopefully some interesting topics. Guys, do you want to take a seat to get started?
Got coffee coming. Got coffee coming. Doing good.
I'll sit here, some cup of coffee. It's ready.
You sit behind.
Hi, nice to see you. How are you?
Doing good?
Good, thank you, brother.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
take a seat.
Yeah.
We're in the big room.
Are these the VIP? Are these pre-booked?
One of them is booked.
I thought we was going to be all strapped up to that thing in there today.
Yeah. So, thank you everyone for coming. We'll make a start. It is 7 o'clock. This is the weekly AI meetup. So we go through some news, we do some demos, and we do some research papers all about AI. Recording it as well. We have had a bit of an upgrade this week, as you can see. We're in the big room, we're the big boys now. So it's going to work a little bit differently. I've got another microphone, so it's going to be a bit difficult because we've got obviously more people and a bigger room to moderate it. So when you want to speak, pass the microphone around. This is a meeting about the technology and less about the existential questions about is AI going to take over the world. So if we steer too far in that direction, I will try and bring us back. And of course, we also have some experts in the room as well. So if there is a point where my knowledge kind of cuts off, then I will, of course, ask the experts in the room. We have Alan, who is sat over there, hiding away on his computer. He'll be joining us a bit later. He's senior machine learning engineer at Provectus, and he was one of the first businesses in the world to get his hands on GPT. And we're also joined by Professor of AI at the University of California, Klaus, I believe. I'm sorry? Your name is Klaus? KOC. Yeah, perfect. And we may well be joined by Mix as well. Mix works on VO2 at Google DeepMind. So there is a lot to go through and a lot to talk about. So first of all, I will introduce myself. I am Harry. I am a tech journalist. I started off writing for The Guardian and for The Coder, and these days I'm doing AI consulting. I have a business, AI to the world, so we go to businesses, we look at their inefficiencies, and we help them essentially transform and change what they're doing. So we'll start with a little bit of an introduction round, as we always do, just to try and get a sense of who's in the room. And then we will go through some news, like I said, some demos. So this week we're going to be talking a lot about MCP. We've got the screen, so we can walk you through some things, and also if we get a chance, some research papers as well, which hopefully our experts can help us untangle a little bit. So Jack, do you want to start us off? Here's the mic. I know, right?
I'm Jack. I work in sales industry, GTME or SDR, so I use a lot of sort of AI tools to help kind of automate and make that an easier, simple process really. So that's me really.
Andreas, and I was a programmer. GitHub Copilot for some useful help.
My name is Liam. I'm from Vancouver, Canada. I got here a few days ago, staying with my brother. I'm a customer service engineer for a hydrogen fuel cell company back in Canada, but I'm trying to get more involved with automation. So.
Hey guys, my name is Christian. I'm from Norway and I work with content creation as well as web development and automations.
My name is Will. I'm a former vice president on acquisition and talent management for PwC.
My name is Visha from Alaska, and we're responsible to build a better station of anything. workshops and sort of coaching for big businesses.
My name is Claude. I teach at UCLA, UC San Diego, AI, cybersecurity, digital transformation, and data science.
Hi, my name is Sean. I'm a news publisher, and I use a lot of generative AI throughout my day, so I love being a news publisher. It's Tony.
Tony, do you want to go next? Tony, do you want to go next?
Hello, my name is Tony. I'm a crypto YouTuber, and I'm building a SaaS with AI, so I'm super fascinated by AI.
I am Fran from Spain, and I am working as a Power BI analyst.
I'm Kim. I'm working at creating a product with marketing AI.
Alright, I think we've been through everybody. I think maybe there's some other people listening in at the back. So yeah, this meetup, as you said, goes through some news, some demos, and then some research papers as well. So we're going to be talking a lot today about MCP and MCP service, something I call MCP bridges. So we'll get on with the kind of the first topic. So let me just connect this up. Thank you. So yeah, I wanted to mix things a little bit and talk about a little bit something that I sort of built over the weekend, which I really think shows you the power of MCP. So MCP is the Model Context Protocol. This is essentially a way of connecting different tools together. So when we think about it, we often think about the MCP server as a way of connecting, say, Claude with Notion or with HubSpot or with Gmail or different tools. I think really what's being talked about is the power of connecting two MCP servers together and what that looks like. So you might ask, why would you want to do that? Why bother connecting two MCP servers together? If you do that, you can transfer data very easily between one place and another. So I built something over the weekend with code, which connects up instantly, which is essentially a sales platform. It allows you to send mass emails at once. It allows you to connect it about 10 or 20 different email inboxes. And I connected it with Notion. And you might ask, why did I do that? Well, what I wanted was to essentially be able to get a record of my leads instantly in Notion. So you get a better handle of them. I have them in a place where they're more easily organized, and so that I can retarget some of them. So Jack will know about some of this. Good to hear you talking about yourself as a GTM engineer now, somebody who is a sort of a person who's building AI systems through outreach rather than just cold calling people or writing emails himself. So these days when we're doing outreach and when we're thinking about how we use AI to actually generate leads for our business, we're going to be able to go much higher volume, and so consequently having automated systems is really important. So just to give you a little bit of an illustration about how this works. So this works essentially as code. So it's a very basic piece of code which I wrote with Claude code. And all it does is it simply connects one MCP server with another. It looks into the Notion database, detects what is already in Notion, or it detects what is already in instantly, and it makes sure there's no crossover. And then it updates them either way. So if we go into my Notion, this is a very scary thing.
Should we be seeing this?
You should be not seeing a back screen, no. Alright. So if we go into my Notion, and we look into the project I'm doing, and yeah, you see I've started to build a cold email dashboard. So with AI, you can get all various kinds of pieces of information, such as how many emails you're sending, how many leads are available, but I also want the leads database. And can you imagine if I tried to do this by hand, or if I hired an assistant to do this, and said, all right, I want you to go away and manually copy all the leads that we've ever reached out to and put them in a database and organize them like this. It would be completely crazy to ask someone to do that. It would cost a lot of money. This database has been entirely designed by AI. So all the little, the organization, the categories, AI connected with an MCP will actually build this for you directly from Claude. And so this automation goes into instantly the email sending infrastructure. This is where you, as I said, where you have 10 or 15 emails connected to one master inbox, so we send out all these emails. Goes in there, looks at all the leads that are tagged AI to the world, my business, and then brings them into this leads database. And this now runs every day. So every day there's an update, this automatically gets updated as well. So if you think about all the different apps you have and where your data kind of lies, the biggest issue you've had before is particularly with, let's say you have a fitness workout app and you're logging your fitness workout app. I know mine has a cut-off point for 3 months, and it said after 3 months you can't see the history anymore. So these kind of systems allow you to very easily pass data from one page to another. It's sort of like unstructured data becomes structured data very, very easily. And the beautiful thing about this is it does not cost any money to build this. You're not really even spending any money on API credits, because the API for things like Instantly are just included with it free. I think there's an API for Notion that does have a rate limit, but it's very high. So even if you run this every day. So all you're really doing is you're not paying for any tech. You don't necessarily need AI. You're just connecting two pieces of things together. So I can see that this is the way we're going to be going soon. And yeah, I mean, right now you can kind of build whatever you want, which I think is really, really cool and really interesting. It also makes reporting a lot easier. So I know one of the things that's obviously really important when you're running a business is literally having a dashboard to be able to see, okay, what's going on in the business? What are the key metrics we're looking at? And I know, Sean, you've built something like this, heaps of dashboards, right? And so as a startup, as someone who's just starting a business, who maybe doesn't necessarily have the funds to get to it like HubSpot, Notion, which is obviously free, and as you know, I am a Notion fanboy. If you come to this meeting time and time again, you'll hear me talk about it. I just think it's really cool. And the fact that you can now essentially use AI to create these things is pretty cool.
So are you using this as a CRM, as a new CRM?
Yeah, essentially using Notion as a CRM and also as an internal database.
So with this database, can you then kind of like can you quote this sort of this database? So if you said leads for, say, a certain campaign, you can then get the Notion to then look at that one sheet?
Absolutely. So if I go on Claude right now, so both what you need to do is you need to get the ID. So we'll go to Claude right now, and then we'll say new chat. And we'll say, I'll type it with one hand, but I want you to tell me how many people I contacted, let's say in November 2024 in my leads database. And then we will, and then you just give it this link, and this link crucially has the database ID in it. The database ID is what you need. And remember, my Claude is connected via MCP. I've coded it to be connected to Notion. This is not something that comes as standard with Notion. You need to do a little bit of coding to get this to work. So we'll press that button, and hopefully this should work. So then there you go. It's going, it's accessing my database within Notion, and it's hopefully going to give me an answer. So this is so powerful because it means that you have AI on top of your dashboard as well. And it's not like it's a special AI chatbot that you need to log into that creates friction. It is directly from Claude. So Claude and Notion together become the hub of my business and my life somewhat. So you can see it's querying it now, and it's looking between, you can see the 1st of November and the 30th of November 2024, and it's going to give us an answer.
In terms of data you can get from like lem list and stuff, does it tell you like reply rates and all that sort of stuff into it?
Yeah, I mean you could ask you to calculate that, right? If the data is there, if the lead is marked in your instantly or lem list database as being positive or active, it's going to return an answer. So yeah, so long as that data is instant, then you can send it anyway. So you notice it's struggling a little bit. It's correcting itself. It knows the filter didn't work, so it's trying to analyze data in a different way. Yeah.
Should we give you?
Who's got the other mic? Yeah, do you want to pass it back?
Have you already connected it to MCP?
Yes. Yeah.
Because I was thinking that you just put it in Notion and it will search.
No, so we'll not do that. That's the most important thing to realise here, is that there are some other steps that I obviously haven't shown you, which is that I've connected my Claude to Notion via MCP. So to do that, you need to write a little bit of code. You essentially need to open the configuration file. So if you come in here, and you press developer, and then you say edit config, it will give you this very scary looking file. Do not be scared by this or intimidated. This is simply JSON, and let me just open this up in a text file, not in person. Yeah, so it gives you this. So this is the configuration file. This is a very simple JSON, and all you're doing is editing this file and running some GitHub repos to install the MCP server locally on your computer, and then basically telling Claude, I want you directing Claude to that MCP server in its configuration file. So that's what it's doing. That's what I did in the background.
So let me get this straight. So first time you connected to MCP, you have to approve it. First time you have to approve it, but then next time you have to do that.
Yeah, exactly. You shouldn't have to do that. Maybe in the chat there'll be a chat box that comes up that asks you about it. So we can see we've got some results here. Based on my analysis of these database, I didn't contact any people in November 2024, so that's why it's struggling. And then it's given me some data about October the 16th, October the 20th. So finding some data, we can ask it how many people in total have I contacted. So I think the really key point about this is the ability to simply interact with it in natural language, which is really, really cool. So, I mean, there are a million and one things that you can actually connect this up with. So the next thing I want to build is, I've started obviously doing YouTube and doing YouTube Shorts, and so you can actually get that data as well. There's an MCP server for YouTube, especially for YouTube creators, that lets you look at all the analytics and all the data. And I want that to pass automatically into a Notion dashboard. And if you notice, Notion also has graphs as well, and these nice fancy little tools. So you can have a nice little dashboard like this that tells you as that data gets updated. So really, really cool. So if you organise Notion in the right way, I think Notion is the perfect companion to Claude. The fact that it's free as well, I think is incredible. And you can see we managed to get some stats down here as well. So remember I go in, it says you've got 17 email accounts active, there are 12 accounts across 6 domains. And so, data that I would want would be like, okay, how much sending volume do we have every day? So this is something Jack will know about, the amount of emails that you send every day. There's a limit to the amount you're able to send per email inbox if you're doing you're doing email outreach with AI. So yeah, I wanted to start by sharing that. I thought that was is pretty cool. And then we're going to be talking in a little bit more detail as well about another way that you can use Notion and Claude together, which I think is kind of cool. Did anyone have any questions about this? I want to ask you about it.
In Claude, you hit the sorry.
In Claude, you hit the limit on the size of the context window. So I guess that is just because you have thousands and thousands of records, and it would have.
Yeah. So this is a really good point. It's a really well made point. You know, this is Claude has a very high rate limit on it, very low rate limit. So if you're parsing all of that data, you really need to build a tool. There's no limit on MCP servers, so you can build one MCP to another MCP, and there's no limit on it. If you instead connect your MCP server to Claude, then you're going to be impacted by the rate that has on it. So if you wanted to search thousands and thousands of leads, it's going to be very difficult. If you're asking to search for one specific lead or one specific piece of information, a handful of pieces of information, it can do that. It does seem at the moment that the rate limit is being impacted by which model you choose. So you're less impacted by it if you downgrade and you use Claude 3.7 or if you use Claude 3.5 Haiku. And those are all models which are perfectly reasonable models for doing a task like this, which is essentially just collecting a piece of data. Is anyone else using a CRM? Like, I'm curious what people are using. Are they using Notion or Salesforce, or what kind of pieces of software are people using?
Yeah.
HubSpot? Why have you picked HubSpot? Is that just the kind of the easiest for you? Is there a particular reason why it's kind of useful for your business? Sorry, can you bring the mic closer? Yeah, closer.
I think it's the incentives that they give to just startups who are starting out. But like the deeper answer is, I think it just frequently gets picked out because it's a legacy software that people are familiar with and have used at their previous companies.
Yeah, so that's really interesting. So HubSpot has recently integrated, is one of the first tools to do deep research integration with ChatGPT. So you can actually have a deep research look into your HubSpot. But I think it is very fascinating how some of these more legacy standard tools end up now becoming easier to use because of AI. And I wonder what that means for that industry. Salesforce is notoriously expensive, so are Salesforce consultants, so are HubSpot consultants, and how far do they, does that, sorry, I've lost my train of thought. How far does that mean this service becoming easier means that it's more accessible, or how far does it mean it's becoming, you're going to make less money because less people are able to consult on it? I don't know. Does it become more accessible, or does it become less accessible? It's an interesting topic of conversation. Lucy, did you want to say something?
So I was going to ask him, like, I mean, because he is using the HubSpot.
Do you want to pass the mic so we can hear you?
Yeah, so have you used it for deep search or search?
No, I haven't. Kind of through that technology on the side of the world, so I'm excited to learn more, but I haven't yet.
Because that is like that feature. Give it a try and let us know.
All right, so this, yeah, sure, do you want to say something?
One thing I like, I'm a coder, so I want to get to the data, and I guess my alternative to Notion is directly accessing your database through Postgres, which you might be storing a whole pile of your website or your SaaS data in Postgres. It's probably one of the most common databases. And you can actually MCP between Claude and your Postgres database. So I think that might even be more impressive in a way if you have a whole collection of historic data in there.
Yeah, I mean, that's such an important point. Sorry? So MCP is a model context protocol. It's a way of connecting tools to AI chatbot. See, Sean's face, smiling as I said that. Yeah. Sorry?
It's a bit difficult to hear from here, so that's why.
So you difficult to hear it, or you wanted to know what the MCP is?
I did hear it, I didn't know what MCP means. Plus, it would be nice if you were loud.
Okay. Shall I get up and stand up? Is that easier? Yeah, I think Sean makes a really, really good, interesting point, which is that the Postgres databases, if you obviously have a huge amount of data, you're not going to be storing it in something like Notion. As I found out when I did a data scraping chatbot with my friend who was a developer who works at OpenAI, you cannot scrape a million pieces of the data a day and put it in an Excel spreadsheet. It doesn't work. You have to have it in a database. So the fact that you can actually collect data from anywhere, from a Postgres database, from Notion, from whatever tool you're using and putting it into Claude, is a really, really cool universal thing. So shall we move on and talk? I want to talk a little bit more about, stay on the topic of Notion and MCP and how you might use it. So it occurred to me this week. I think Sean said something in one of the previous sessions. He said, Harry, I organise all my chats. I think I got my Claude up and he was noticing that he's basically just a mess, right, with over 1,000 chats. He said he archives them, does all this stuff with them. And I thought, well, I'm kind of past the point where I can kind of do that, right? It's a year into me using Claude now, and I've got over 1,000 chats. How can I extract some of the information from them? So what I did is I actually set up a database within Notion, and I am in the process of setting up a project where you can do this with any chat. Anytime you have an interesting chat, you can now send it to this database in Notion, and you can actually save that chat and have it categorized automatically as to what the topic is about, have the chat summarized, then have the chat completely copied and pasted into the Notion database. And remember, those can be retrieved at other points as well. I think so often we chat with LLMs and we have a really interesting thought, and then we sort of forget about it, and I don't know about you, maybe Sean is different because he archives them and he arranges them, but my chats just fall off the wayside. I lose them or I forget that idea. And so if you come across a really interesting idea and you want to save it, I think that's really useful. Also, what I think is great is that you can go away and do a deep research about something. So if you do deep research, so I did a deep research yesterday on the Iranian situation. I'm very curious about the question of, does Iran actually have nuclear capability? Or is there a chance they are actually trying to make nuclear power? Obviously that's not a subject that I'm a domain expert in at all. So I did a deep research on that, and it searched over 300 different sources. It looked at the atomic energy reports, and of course I answered questions about how uranium is actually enriched. So all of that information I thought was very interesting. It gave a very substantial answer. Maybe an answer that you wouldn't even get in the mainstream media. It's a bit highly comprehensive. So that's an example of something that I saved to the database. So if we go back to Notion, and we look at my learning, and then we go to library. You see, I have interesting Claude chats now. So whenever I have something interesting or that I need, so you see it can be something as benign as like, well, how do you get the right consistency for your protein shake? Really important information, of course. I won't remember that. So it's now categorized, it's problem solving, and this entire database was built by Claude. So I said to Claude, I'm setting up an interesting Claude chat. How should I go about structuring this database and organizing it? So all of these fields that you see, conversation type, the date, follow-up needed, summary, and then these tags. This was all designed by Claude. So you can see obviously we've got this, we've got a little bit of my deep research into gradient descent and reinforcement learning. Sure, Alan is very happy to see that. And then I'm reading Wolf Hall at the moment. It's a historical novel by Hilary Mantel, and there was a throwaway line in there about one of the characters being potentially selected as Pope, and I didn't know that. So I wanted to know more about that, so I stopped the audiobook and I did some research on it and had a bit of back and forth. And so then when you open the page, you can see that the page is now nicely organised with the summaries and key insights, nice H2s, nice H1s, all the different questions I've asked and counterfactual, and a nice source and further readings at the end with some actual books. So you can see how valuable, how useful this is, and I think what this says is that you can use Notion as a kind of RAG system. So in the agenda today, I sort of said this is Notion as RAG, and what I meant by that is you can pass all your chats into it, and perhaps it's a way of getting around the context window as well. Perhaps you can summarize certain chats. You can send them here, and suddenly you've got this infinite database for as long as Notion will allow you to keep updating it. And you can go and ask it to search for information and bring it back, and you can send information. So you have this freeway between the two that I think is really interesting. So it acts almost like a Claude project, and almost like a RAG system. It's only bringing back a piece of information that you kind of need.
I can just ask. But if you've got a big database, does it not have the same problem as you had before with the contacts?
Yeah.
You can have a problem with the context window if I'm looking for the protein thing.
Yeah, so that is a very good point. So if you notice, I think the great thing about having a summary here, so LLMs love summaries, right? It's how everything seems to work. So if we go a little bit more technical in it, and we do a deeper dive into the technology. When you chat with an LLM, you're using tokens, so we're converting all the words into these numbers, and we are mapping essentially, or looking at analysing the relationships between all of them. That's what's going on. We're trying to predict what token comes next based on the relationships between all of them. This gets exponentially bigger because if you think about it, as we add more words, then the more words there are that have to relate back to other words. So this is why there's a context window, because the amount of tokens we have just exponentially increases. The more words, the more relationships we have to map. So it gets to a point where it just becomes almost, takes up too much power, is kind of unusable. Sure, Alan, you talk a little bit about why context windows sort of reach their limit. So the way around it essentially has been to summarize. So RAG is assisted retrieval augmented generation that will chunk everything up into smaller parts, and the system will go in, look for the most relevant part based on your prompt, and bring it back into the system. So having summaries is really helpful for that. So if you were giving it every single page and every single piece of information, and yeah, you would have the same problem that you would reach the context window. Sure. Alan, did you want to say a few words about that, where we're at with context windows, problems that we're facing, such as being able to actually chat with large data sets with LLMs?
Sure, yeah. You guys hear me well? Okay, yeah, so that's the common misconception, I believe, that so many people are building RAGs nowadays when actually you can drop one of the documents into the context window and it would still work. Like context window, I think in ChatGPT is currently limited to 128,000 tokens, so it's a pretty limited enough one. But like Gemini on the other hand, they have 1 million tokens enabled by default, and if you apply for like special dev settings, I think you can have 2 million tokens. So I don't remember how it like roughly correlates compares to the number of pages, but like you can take one token as 4 characters. So yeah, 100,000 tokens versus 2 million tokens, big difference, right? With RAG systems, if you have like millions of documents and you want to find something in millions of documents, RAG is great for it. If you have like 10 documents and you want to find information, why bother spending time building something? Just drop it all into the context window and it will do correctly as well.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point to note as well, the distinction between the two things. If you have a large wave of documents, RAG is relatively the standard way so far that engineers have kind of correlated on to to get large amounts of data, which isn't as complicated as you might think to build a RAG system these days. But if you've got a smaller data set, up to 128,000 tokens, I always count them in Harry Potter books, and I've forgotten, I think 128,000 is maybe Philosopher's Stone, Chamber of Secrets. It's about 100,000 words, maybe 120,000 words. So you get Philosopher's Stone and Chamber of Secrets in the context of ChatGPT, and Claude has got 200,000 context. I believe Gemini has 1 million, 2 million. But
okay, so I'm a news publisher, and if a new journalist starts, you don't want them to read all of the news stories that we've ever produced. No, you give them a style guide, which is a summary of all of the ways that we write things, and it's only hundreds of words. So I think so many things can be solved by summarizing all of your history up into what I would call a style guide, but some sort of guidelines or direction or something like that, and then using that each time.
So I guess this is a theoretical question. If your journalist did have the power to read all of your past articles, would that be preferable to you? So suppose what I'm asking is, is this a pragmatic decision from you, or is this simply wouldn't be preferable? Because of course, we may well reach a point where an LLM could ingest and read all of the articles that you've ever written in a chatbot interface. It could do that. Do you think that the gains would be so marginal it's not even worth it?
I guess I'm saying, for example, if you're writing your sequel to your book, then of course you can get a summary of the first book and all the characters and where they're at and what their names are and those sort of things, and you can get that summary to pass on to the writing of the sequel. You don't have to provide all the previous books.
Yeah, okay. Did anyone else have any thoughts about the way we're sort of using Claude and Notion together? There you go.
Hi. All right, so my question is, what you're showing us right now is basically they're extracting data and then reorganizing it, right?
Yes.
Okay, is there a way, this might be a sketchy question, is there a way to do that when you need logins for a system? There's no way to just export it? Because this is exporting it because it's just open. But what if you need a username and password?
So let me drill down a little bit into the company you're talking about. So why would you need a username and password? Is it a closed system? Essentially you want it to connect to MCP with a closed system.
That's right, yeah.
Right.
In the example someone else used, it's HubSpot.
Sure.
But HubSpot has an export button where you can export the data, and then you can upload that here and it can reorganize it. But what if you could not export the data? Could you essentially, let's use HubSpot, could something like this log in with a username and password and then do that?
So that's a really good question. So we're talking about two fundamentally different things here. There's the login to the system, and then there's what's known as API keys. So API keys are your secret key. They are your login. Yeah. So I've given this my API key to Notion. Yeah. I obviously have a login to Notion, but I'm not using it in this case because I've already logged into Notion. I've got my API key. An API key is almost like a username and password that developers use in like simple terms.
So the system's got no API, just FYI.
Yeah. So what system are you talking about?
It's a very small system.
Yeah.
It's super small.
Yeah. So it is possible to build MCP servers without an API. It's very difficult to do. Maybe Alan can speak to how you do that. I think you need access to the database to understand the structure of the database to be able to program an MCP. But it essentially can be done. So the purpose of an API key is to protect your data in a sort of development setting. So you log in, grab your API key, and then you don't need to keep giving it your username and password. You don't need to do all, essentially. You can allow the systems to talk to each other and get your data. And sometimes you have scopes. So these are, you go in when you set up your API and you say, with the Spotify one that I built a few weeks ago, we saw where I connected Spotify to Claude. You have to list to go through it and say, I give you permission to read the data, I give you permission to edit it and all these different things. So that's really how they work. They're two different systems, essentially. Login, username and password is for a consumer to log in on an application. An API key is for a developer to connect two different systems together without having to use autonomous. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Good.
Thank you.
Good. Alan, do you want to go and do a bit of a deep dive into this?
I'm not really a deep dive, just that like we can check operator. I think operator can possibly use the password. And if not operator is like a ready tool from the AI. If you want to build something, you can just use computer use APIs from Anthropic and build your solution with that. I'm pretty sure there are people who build things like this, but I just don't know how to implement it.
Okay. The operator?
Yeah. That's $200 a month.
How it's just been upgraded to include O3. Yeah, Alan, that's a really good solution actually to use operator.
Yeah, I mean, you could print something out of that app and save it as a PDF and then upload it. There's lots of other ways that you could think about doing it. Operator is good, but it only saves your username and password for a small amount of time. I'm not sure how many hours it is, maybe it's like 4 hours or something like that. So if you're scheduling a task regularly, it can remember the cookies and log into that website again and again. And
then you can use your computer use API.
Yes, but yeah, in the Claude desktop app, you could use the desktop, the computer use.
And also, I mean, right now there is like engine called Runner Edge, which is basically which does basically what Sean just described. So it will take a screenshot, let's say, of like your Cloud console, and you try to extract the information, including like, the credential. So it will do that copy that for you, and you should before going to do that project, you should be like a shy.
What is it called again?
Runner Edge. It's like a French company. Right now they are on the beta version, so it's for free.
Okay, thank you.
And yeah, I think that is a good solution. I would also say as well, Operator has just been upgraded to include O3, and they do. Operator and some of these computer use agents, they do come up against some limitations, which is important to remember. We were talking about it last week with how if we were building the internet from scratch with AI, would we be thinking about computer operators where you ask them to go into a website and they've got all these barriers, cookies, sorts of GDPR, all these things, robots.txt. You probably wouldn't do that. You'd probably build a separate LLM version of the internet in JSON and Markdown that you could very easily connect to. And the researchers at Anthropic that we talked about from the Jornish podcast, they told us that when Claude's computer use agent ran on their own internal internet that didn't have cookies, that didn't have cache, that didn't have all these things, it actually ran very, very smoothly, a lot more smoothly than it does on the real internet. The real internet, they said, is not an LLM-friendly place. So, yeah. All right, shall we move on? There's been some, unless anyone had any more thoughts, any more questions on sort of Notion and just, yep. No one? All right, so we're going to talk about some interesting video stuff right now. So text to video at the moment is really, really hot. There's so much going on in that world, and you almost can't keep up with the developments that are going on. We've had, just to summarize some of the announcements that have come in the last few weeks, we've had VO3. So VO3 is that amazing text-to-video model where you can get dialogue and you can get sound as well, and you can get 10-second clips. We've had ByteSeed, which we saw come out from ByteDance, yep, which is very good at movement. This week, MidJourney have finally dropped their video model, which we've all been waiting for. So MidJourney is really one of the OGs of image generations. It's been around for, I think, over 2 or 3 years now, a long time, and it's mainly been focused on images. It's probably the one that artists would use. It's got a very good style to it, very interesting style to it. The way you use it is very sophisticated. And now finally they've come out with their video generation model. So let's take a look at a demo and see what they have been up to with their video generation model.
see they also got sued by Disney.
Yes.
Oh.
The lawsuits continue.
Sued by Disney.
Yeah, Simpsons and Star Trek, Star Wars.
So, of course, everyone's now saying, forget VO3, it's all about MidJourney. Of course, when the new thing comes. It's not going to give you the right answer, sorry about that.
Journey video, just anything simply changes the game for AI video. This model brings the iconic MidJourney aesthetic to life in full motion. But the real story is the combination of MidJourney's omniverse structure and MidJourney video. Together, they make creative.
So you can clearly see it's got a style to it. It's what the other image generation models don't have.
Giants like Click, Hydro, and Video. In this full demo, you'll find out with a side-by-side comparison. And I will show you MidJourney's secret weapon, Extend feature. With this update, we are witnessing MidJourney's next evolutionary step, transforming images into video. And this brings a new, gorgeous Explore page to the experience. You can always change between images and videos on page, and there are amazing videos.
So the OGs will remember that MidJourney did not have a website for a very, very long time. Only had a Discord server.
I will give same prompt to all the images and see how they do it. I have a very simple prompt. Shoot takes cover in the station and start shooting. Looking at the MidJourney video result, it seems that taking cover part is not really like excellent by the shooting here, but the mechanism of guns.
So we're joined by Mix. He's come just in time to talk about. We're talking about the text video.
It seems a little bit random, so it almost feels like you're just randomly shooting around. Besides these minor issues, it's a nice shot. There's also a very nice smooth camera motion. Jumping into clips is all perfectly understood.
So I want to, so Mix works on Google DeepMind, and I believe he works on VO2, I believe, or on VO1. So we're just talking about MidJourney version 7. Curious to hear your thoughts. On the surface, it looks really great for movement, and it looks a lot better at mastering some movement than some Kling or some others. What do you think about it? Do you think it's a next step, or do you think it's worth paying attention to? Let me get you a mic. Is someone got the mic? Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I mean, sometimes I should create a MidJourney yet, but like, MidJourney video, but I think it doesn't offer the same resolution. It's a low resolution as video or Kling. Overall, it's probably going to be like really great for like very artistic styles, just as like MidJourney image models. But probably it's, I think it's probably the same.
So what I'm hearing is it's like the resolution is a limitation to it.
Yeah, I think video is like capable of like 4K generation. Many of these models target like 1 megapixel, whereas I think MidJourney releases like 480p, which is like
So like, why do you think that is? You think that's literally just the lack of data, lack of space on MidJourney's like servers? Like, why do you think the limitation is there?
It's I think with the high resolution, the longer the sequence is, like the bigger complexity and computational expense to process those videos, both in training and in videos. So it's like it's very difficult to, I think, for I mean, it's like it's a huge cost to train a model with like many people doing like something like 1080p or 700p. That's why they might initially cut the problem slightly. It might be also like a kind of like inference cost. Many users are not really be very happy about like generating videos of like $2 or $3 per sample or something like that. And then maybe they would target this kind of like user that would be interested in learning more, trying out more, and there are also like to the extent tools for video or something like help us, for instance, can take lower resolution video and it's also like AI-based something in 4K. So I think in many workflows, I think people might be like creators might be interested in first generating a lower resolution, trying out their ideas, building something, and then only trying to like get like a full resolution video on top of the
Yeah, that's really interesting, which leads me to my next question, which is, given that, clearly your analysis is they don't have the computational resources to get to 1080p. Can they realistically compete with all the other video generation models? Do they have a future, or do you think MidJourney's had its time? What do you think?
Difficult to tell. Like, I think, I mean, MidJourney has like really exciting. Like, I think they're only bootstrap startup, like their startup initially, without any VC funding. But yeah, I think that might be kind of like hitting the ceiling when it comes to certain costs that are related. Because for video models, they're much higher than image models. So, but who knows? I mean, at the same time, they are now like for a long time they've been like commonly. So it might be just the first step. And they can just play like lower resolution earlier.
Yeah. Go for it, Lucy. Oh, the mic is.
So I want to ask two questions. First of all, because I really want now to see the next 2 years will be like and internet text video. And I also know that you're working
Still going.
on a project right now. You're going to release the models. Is that true? You are all being excited about that?
Yeah, so the second question, the answer is yes. It's coming next month. And the first question, like I think, next 2 years, I think 2 years in the scale of like how AI is progressing is like a very, very time to make like accurate predictions. But I think image models, for instance, like image generation models, like I think the improvement curve is flatlining a bit already, and I think I would expect that would happen for video as well. So which means that probably I think that the gap between like quantity, we've seen like really huge improvements from let's say DMP, and there's also I think Byte's released a very strong model, C-Dream, if I remember correctly. But I believe like they're already hitting the kind of quality that is like very cinematic, very realistic. I think the improvements will not be there. Like,
All right, so yeah, let's move on and go through a little bit more news before we sort of close out. So Sam Altman gave an interview this week, which I thought was significant, and it also talks a lot to where we are in the space. So he talked about GPT-5 and when is GPT-5 going to come? And his answer is pretty interesting, I would say. So let me find the article. So he says, Sam Altman, the CEO, Sam Altman is obviously the CEO of OpenAI. He says GPT-5 is coming this summer. but he's still keeping the details of it under wraps. And he's only offering a vague timeline. But what he says is interesting, because he says probably sometime this summer, but I don't know exactly when. But he said it's difficult to understand when that moment will come. So what exactly is GPT-5? So he says it used to be that you would train a model, it would go through all the stages, and then you would put it out, and that would be it, and it would be clear that this was a new model. But now there's so much post-training things and so much incremental improvements, it's not really clear when GPT-4 becomes GPT-4.5, when does GPT-4.5 actually become a new model. Will it be an entirely new model, or will it just be that you can put so many iterations and so many great things in ChatGPT that at that point they collectively make the decision that this has been upgraded? So it's very interesting. And Altman says the definition of artificial general intelligence keeps shifting every year. So everybody familiar with the concept of artificial general intelligence? At the same time, the models are already so capable that more and more people will still think we've gotten to AGI systems this year, even though we haven't. Sam Altman disagrees with those who believe AGI has already been reached, even with the new O3 model. So, of course, ChatGPT will come out with O3 Pro. And they published a statement clarifying that the development of AGI isn't a single Eureka moment, but rather that it's an ongoing process. Meanwhile, Microsoft and OpenAI have reportedly defined AGI in strictly financial terms in their own contracts, with profits as the main metrics. This is very interesting. And Satya Nadella, Microsoft has said AGI debate is just an optical benchmark package. So he said just sort of ignore it. So we're in a very, very interesting place. And what's very interesting is that we are at a stage where we saw this with Claude as well. I mean, Claude 4 came out, and sure, I was impressed, but I wasn't like, wow, this is a whole new world that I have to get used to. It just felt like a rental update to Claude 3.7 Sonnet. So we're in a very, very interesting place. Are we moving to a point where we're suddenly going to have another big leap in technology, or is this it? Are we just making incremental changes, essentially doing complex RL on top of these models to get where we want to get to? Dorcas Patel on this podcast posed the question, and Lucian raised the point about it. It's like, will RL, will reinforcement learning actually get us to AGI? And is it just the case we're going to make incremental steps to get there? Or are we waiting for some big brand new development? So I'm curious to hear what the researchers in the room think of this. And do you have any thoughts? Do you think we're going to get there through small incremental changes, or do you think that we are going to we need another big new development like the attention to unique paper in 2017, or like RL? Yeah.
Or without mic is better?
I think it's better. Yeah, I think it's better with the mic.
I think it's better with the mic. Okay, cool. Yeah, well, AGI. Well, AGI was something like actually putting that industry, like the dream of having something as capable as another human. I think one unspoken truth is that we are, in some areas, we're actually there. Like, I really like what Sam Altman recently spoke about on like how different age groups use ChatGPT differently. Like people in their 30s use it as a Google replacement. He didn't spoke about people in 40s. I guess someone is still doing this. But except Sean is great. People in their 20s, they use it as a life advisor. And people around 15, apparently they combine it into the operational system where they would make it work with things like files as well. So there is this generational gap in how we use it. And well, I've been using it a lot for like this. Knowing that, I kind of made the step to use it as my life advisor. And I think it's really incredible. Like when I did some experiments of like going for advice to a friend and going for advice to ChatGPT. And one thing you can quickly notice is that when you dump a big context of the situation to your friend, no matter how capable, and ask to produce the valuable output in form of good advice in a short period of time, then this is just a heavy burden for a human brain, and that's something that AI won't even feel. So I think with technical things, I wouldn't even bother asking any other engineer. I'll just go directly to AI. And I think we can call that AGI if we follow the initial term that stated that it's AI as capable as another human. Then the next step, I think what we're discussing here, what Sam said before, that it would be capable of doing scientific discoveries. Well, I think should be past AGI in my opinion, since initially what was described as ASI, artificial superintelligence, is something that would be smarter than other humans. And I would express an opinion that doing scientific discoveries is actually being smarter than what currently is out there. And AlphaEvolve is a perfect example that we are going that direction. And AlphaEvolve improved 20% of the algorithms it was testing, which is really incredible. And if we follow that and we make new iterations on top of that, I think we can get pretty far. But in terms of the AGI, getting to AGI, I'm pretty sure there are areas in which AI is currently less capable. So we have to identify these areas and probably improve it there. One big problem that I noticed is I did a little experiment when asking for a decision in certain space, and it gave inconsistent decisions. In 80% of cases it would say yes, in 20% of cases it would say no. I think identifying these inconsistencies, making sure that AI stands its ground and can really take the leading role in leading humanity into the better future. I think that's the next step to call it AGI. But it's really incredible. We've been talking about AGI as something mystical before, but now that we actually have AI that is as intelligent as other human, we don't really talk about it that much.
So for me, AGI, for me is
You send a mic to this.
Sure. For me, thank you for that. It's very sensitive contribution. And for me, AGI is more super intelligent robots everywhere. So I think, everybody here I think when we are talking about AGI, I think you see robots, right? And I think we are doing good right now with LLMs, but I don't think AGI is super sophisticated models, LLMs. I think it's more systems on top of those models. And I think we're really advancing, but it need to take some time before we really achieve it.
Yeah, I guess seems that certainly no consensus on this, but it certainly seems that there is no going to be one big moment perhaps where we're wow, we've sort of reached the pinnacle. Even if you think about when attention is all you need, which is the paper that kickstarted this off, came out in 2017. It wasn't until 2022 that ChatGPT came out. It took us that 5-year gap to realise to put that technology fully into commercial practice for everybody to access it. And we're now at the stage where we're almost scratching the surface, trying to push the bounds of that technology with reasoning models, with reinforcement learning. So I think that there are going to be a lot more incremental steps along the way before we. I don't think we're going to get. We don't think we're all going to wake up one day and think, well, that's it. I don't need to do anything anymore. The supercomputers are taking over. And I also don't think that technology is fundamentally architected like that in a way anyway. So,
this is different, I think.
think?
I just think ASI will just be steep, quick. But there's so many different varying opinions.
Yeah. If you apply something like Alpha Evolve to the further advanced neural networks. Well, I just wanted to make a point that with AGI, I think that currently to have the real impact of AI on the world, humans are the bottleneck. I don't think we already have so capable models that now we just have to, we still have a lot of people from pre-AI era running the companies, learning about AI, and still discovering, oh, it can generate an image, oh wow, it can generate a video. For us it's obvious, for them it's less obvious. So once some time has to pass, but once AI-aware people will be managing companies and AI native people. We were talking about people who were born in the internet era who don't know the world about the internet. Imagine people who don't know the world about AI. So once they will start managing companies, they will make AI way more influential without even increasing the intelligence of the current models.
Anyone else? Only more thoughts? Next? Yes, we do. Yeah. Next. We're putting you on the spot here. We're asking you about AGI. What is your opinion?
It's very difficult topic, and it's very difficult to define AGI, I think. But I believe that right now, what the problems we are meeting with current approaches, that the kind of leading technologies, AI is undoubtedly large language models. First, that they become more and more aware of other kind of data modalities, becoming multimodal, but still, I think there's the amount of knowledge and the amount of intelligence to be kind of learned and inferred from text is kind of getting exhausted. I think we can quite reasonably expect that OpenAI has probably scraped all of the internet, every written text ever by humans has been put into training data. It's actually not problematic for those companies training LLMs to make sure that their models are trained on human written text and not outputs of other LLMs, which is a problem in some. But that means that I think we are approaching this, these models are approaching some limitation of the data they can learn from. And again, the textual data is quite good at expressing lots of things, concepts, but I don't think it's exhaustive to what we call intelligence. So I think there's quite a lot, until we get AGI, I think there'll be quite a lot of paradigm shifts maybe, and models will have to be kind of not only multimodal, but have to understand things like physics, space, images, audio, and right now, there are attempts at doing that, but I think everything is all of these models are pretty much trained as there's a sequence of text tokens, and there are some attachments for images, maybe some tokenized images, but it's I think there's probably a lot of room there for improvement. So I think if AGI comes, it will come from the models that will have much better understanding of other varieties.
Yeah, a really well made point. I think we all sort of sit here and think, wow, this technology is amazing, we're ready to go, we've done it, say we've already reached AGI with level 3. I think Mix's point is well made that there are so many things that still need to be done in this space. Spatial awareness, understanding of the world, also a lot, I guess, to be done in mechanistic I can never say this word. When you're trying to do research into why the model makes that decision that it does, mechanistic intuitability.
Oh, I don't know.
I'm gonna Google this word because I cannot say it. Basically, research. Thank you so much, Mix. Appreciate it. Yeah. Mechanistic interpersonality. The understanding the approach or the interpersonal interactions. So essentially examining the mechanisms or the processes that go into different models. All right. Well, I think we've kind of reached the end of the meeting for today. This is all the news and the demos I have for you. So I'll just summarize. We've gone through MCP bridges. So this is the idea that you can connect two MCP servers together without using AI to transfer data from A to B very easily and get it organized. We have talked about how we can use Notion to actually interact with our chats and store our chats in history using Notion as a kind of RAG system. We then moved and we've looked at some of the video generation models. We've talked about MidJourney, and then we've digressed and talked about the differences between VO3, the new Bytes, that's model that came out last week, and the limitations of these models and where we're going. We had some insightful insight from Mix, who obviously worked on VO1, and then we closed off with talking about Sam Altman's comments on GPT-5 and how far we are from AGI. So yeah, thank you all for coming to today's meetup. You're welcome to stay and chat. I am on LinkedIn if you want to connect with me.
So one of the interesting things that happened was OpenAI announced their record link.
Yes, that is a good point. So there's a new note taker from ChatGPT directly. So we now have a Notion.
Otter?
You've got Otter, Firefly, Fathom, Notion have their own AI note taker, and now ChatGPT themselves have one as well. So super cool. I haven't tried it yet. I wonder what their motive was for going into that. Whether they just wanted to disrupt some of the market space. But yeah, I'm sure that's a really key point. So yeah, there's really so much news in AI. What I try to do is cover the main stories and the main trends, so you can see what's happening, where things are going, and also demos of things that I think are practical and useful. But of course, we can't cover every story, and there is a WhatsApp group as well if you would like to join up. Thank you very much for coming in the first meeting in the cafe.